our science, among our science community. This is despite the fact that it is the politics and geopolitics which actually shape the direction of scientific research. Now, speaking of the term geopolitics, it is indeed a highly contested concept with multiple meanings and interpretations. And these meanings and interpretations have actually been changing historically. Also true about geopolitics is that it is a highly misunderstood concept. So we have French geopolitics, German geopolitics, American and British geopolitics. And at one point in our global politics, this term geopolitics was actually misused for the purpose of imperial expansion as well as for the purpose of proving racial superiority. That was in case of Germany in the Second World War. And this geopolitics is still being misused to certain ideological purpose, particularly if you see the interventions of major powers in West Asia. So what actually geopolitics is? There are two dimensions to it, and one is conventional dimension, wherein we try to study the effect of geography. When I say geography, it means both physical and human geography on politics and international relations. And the second dimension, which is actually much more dynamic dimension, is that how a space, when I use the term space, it has a definite connotation. It means the surface of the earth with all its complexities, including the content of the surface of the earth, the distance, the directions. So that means how a space is used by states and nowadays increasingly non-state actors to further their needs and expectations. So, but here I am to discuss about what are the career options for students who are interested in the field of geopolitics. As we know that this world is quite complex, and this complex world is characterized by many actors, state actors, non-state actors, national actors, transnational actors, and then there is unequal power relations between all these actors, and this relation is not fixed and it is constantly changing. And this there is also each of these actors are having unique geographical circumstances in terms of their location, in terms of their resource positions, and they do have their own respective preferences in terms of national priorities. So we need a geopolitical analyst, basically. If there is one area where there is a career for geopoliticians, for a scholar of geopolitics, it is in the field of geopolitical analysis. So we need geopolitical analysts to understand this world of bewildering diversity, complexity, then also to predict the preferences of various actors, nature of relationship between those actors. We also need geopolitical analysts to develop understanding of how power of states and their preferences as well as their geographical circumstances converge to influence current and future regional and global events. We also need geopolitical analysts to develop an understanding of how events occurring at various spatial and temporal scales and at different geographical locations are related to each other. And it is indeed a very complex thing to do. So in other words, we can say that geopolitical analysts try to understand, explain, and predict international political behavior as well as international political events through important geographical variables. To master the art of geopolitical analysis, we need to have an understanding of at least three important forces, and these are geography and space relations of the state and the region, then the culture and history of the state relation and the region, and also the national needs and expectations of different states. Because these are the three factors which actually shape the pattern of interstate relations and also the geopolitical dynamics in a particular region. Now, talking about geography and space relations, one can take the example of Ukraine. See, Ukraine is located just nicely sandwiched between Europe and Russia. And Ukraine is very, very important from the point of view of Russia because Russia has access to the oceans and its ability to trade and project its power globally depends on Russia, depends on Ukraine, because Ukraine blocks its access to the warm water. And therefore, Russia is permanently interested in Ukraine. Similarly, culture and history is also important. Take the example of relations between Turkey and Greek. Historically, there is a conflictual relations between these two states. And as a result, this is one of the reasons why the access of Turkey to European Union has been blocked for so long. Thirdly, we also need to know national needs and expectations, and one can take the example of China. China, consumes about 50% of world steels and cements. And China is an energy-hungry country, and China needs for her energy, most of her energy from the West Asia. So for China, there is all the countries which are on and around Indian Ocean and the Malacca Straits. China has to develop a kind of relationship with these countries. So basically, China is very, very much interested, where there is recently a theory being a pulse where China is surrounding India from different parts of Indian oceans. So what I am saying is that the national needs and expectations of a country actually determine its political behavior or political overtune. I will, in the context of climate change, I would give two examples where we can actually use, where geopolitics is very, very important. Since morning we have many very interesting discussions on the issues of climate change in Antarctica, Arctic and Himalayas, and how the geophysical changes in these three regions will have impact on the society and the economy. The basic idea is that in the event of extreme weather and other changes in other parameters of the atmosphere, there will be impact on economy and habitat of the population, and this will trigger human migration. And when the human migration takes place across borders, obviously this will have impact on interstate relations. Already there are many studies in the case of Bangladesh where particularly the southwestern part of Bangladesh, there is an increase in salinity, and as a result people are moving either inside Bangladesh, and some of them are clandestinely also moving towards India. And the second issue, and very closely related with this, is that particularly in the case of Himalayas, in case of change in weather, particularly snow melting, what will happen? There will be change in the river regimes. And you know that there are 54 rivers. In the case of Bangladesh, there are 57 rivers entering into Bangladesh, and out of 57 rivers, 54 enter from India and 3 from Myanmar. And out of these 54 rivers, we have agreement only on one river, that is Ganga. So what will happen if there is a decline in water quantity in these rivers? Or there will be more floods in these rivers? You know, water is one commodity, rivers is one entity which is highly politicized in the case of South Asia. So, this climate change in the Himalaya will have an impact on interstate relations, and we need geopoliticians, and if these geopoliticians are from earth science background, particularly those who can understand a little bit about physical dynamics of the earth, the climatic dynamics of the earth, then I think they will be in a better position to interpret the contemporary geopolitical scenario of the world. And geopolitics, you know, the issue of geopolitics is not only confined to the issue of climate change. We can also take the example of, business, trade. Nowadays, we have more transnational companies than before. So trade is, companies are moving across the nations. They are investing across the nations. So these companies, these multinational corporations need to analyze the geographical environment, the political environment of those nations. Take the case of Africa, which is actually a very interesting case where both Indians and Chinese are interested because Africa has a lot of minerals. So wherever Indians are going, they are finding the Chinese are already there. So do we have centers which study about these regions? Unless and until we have solid knowledge about these regions, we cannot formulate our national policy, we cannot formulate our trade policy. So with these words, I think I should close. Thank you very much.